Simple thing like a whole food plant-based diet, half your plate of fruits and vegetables, one quarter of your plate of beans and legumes, and one quarter of your plate whole grains with nuts thrown in. You do this, your endothelium regenerates. That's why you see if you're a whole food plant-based SOS diet, that is the reason, because your endothelium now regenerates and becomes normal again.
Alrighty, well, it is so great to be here. And VLynn, I'm excited to see you again. Dr. Akil, it is always a pleasure to see you. And, I'm so fascinated by your story and the fact that you are the age you are. I will say that you are older than a lot of people, and yet you're younger in your biological age, because it's like you are out there doing amazing things, but it wasn't always that way. So why don't we start with you giving a little background on where you came from with your health?
Sure, but before that, just let me tell you that age is not a limiting factor in having somebody to change their lifestyle. I did it at 61. I tell you, people have done it at 70, 75. So that's not a criteria at all. And you're right in pointing that out. Um, Everybody has a story in them, but they
Mhm.
don't know how to take it out. I was in that same state. I had a story, but I didn't know how to talk to people or how to write a book or how to pen it down in words. And so the difficult part was that not being a writer or not being someone who was like my brother is, he's written 4 books, it becomes difficult. But every single day, when I used to relate to my patients, my staff, my friends, my family, of what I had done in transforming my life, every time I climbed a mountain or I did a marathon, they would say, "Why don't you write about it? Why don't you tell people about it?" So I procrastinated till the time when you had the COVID. COVID for so many people was devastating. But for me, it was a blessing in disguise because I got the time.
Mm-hmm.
Got the time. And when I got the time, I sat down. And once the words started flowing, it was wow. When I wrote the book, I laughed loud. When I wrote the book, I cried loud. There were tears at times. There was anger at times. So there were all these emotions when I was writing the book. Of course, I didn't have any grammar or any thing right to go by. I just kept on putting my
Mm-hmm.
notes because I knew that sooner or later I'll have to get somebody to get everything in order. So, and like I always say that till the age of 61, I was a creator of my own unhealthy lifestyle. I mean, trust you. I mean, I have eaten everything and anything under the sun. Absolutely. Unhealthy food without worrying about what effect it'll have on my health. And when people would invite me for cognacs and cigar smoking and drinks and eating this, I said, go ahead. I was doing it. At the same time, I was, for want of a better word, a couch potato. So I ate, I slept, and then I ate some more, and then I slept some more, and I worked. I worked incessantly. I worked so hard, but without paying attention to my family, friends. That was a bad part of me, which I'd given up. So all this leads to a kind of stress, and you think you're handling the stress, but you're not. It becomes a part and parcel of your life. So you feel, oh, I'm growing older. This is going to happen to me. So one fine day, heart disease came knocking. I wasn't surprised at the age of 56. And oh my God, what a blow. What a blow.
Mm.
I thought I was invincible. I thought I was a doctor. I would take care of it. But no, doctors make the worst patients. And so I really, I went ahead and listened to everybody else and said, okay, you'll have to get put on stents, get on stents. And from the point at 56, I got my stents till 61 were the 5 worst years of my life
Mhm.
because I had not given up. I continued my lifestyle because I was scared. I went under denial. I did not want to believe that I had this. So, to make matters worse, I would drink more, I would eat more so that it would just get the main thing that I was worried about was I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't want to deal with it. So the 5 years were horrendous. I mean, I had night sweats. I had wake up in the night. I would have nightmares. So it went on and on. I wasn't surprised. At the age of 61, my stents failed. But a
Mm.
little bit about this heart disease is so important that the guy who put my stents, he was 54 years old. He was a brilliant cardiologist because I had a cardiac arrest when they tried to break my plaques. But that's a different story. Okay, I faced death. But that guy who was 54 died on a treadmill 2 years after he put my stents.
Mm.
He was a heart doctor. He died of a massive heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
Mm.
So that is more important to me. That is why I want to go on giving this message anywhere and everywhere, whoever wants to listen.
Let's backtrack just a little bit because I think it's important for people to know what kind of doctor you are or you were. What was your main focus in your practice?
See, I always wanted to be a family practitioner. You see, I believe that people who come and see a family physician,
Mhm.
they don't have to see the sitcoms in the evening. You get, not them. I would not have to see the sitcoms in the evening because I get everything.
Right.
I get somebody who tells me a funny story, somebody who tells me about a earache, somebody who tells me who is, anxious. So I'm trying to talk to these people and I'm feeling great. I am the best in the examination room, the best. I mean, I may not be a great husband, I may be a reasonably good father and all that and grandfather, but I am the best in the examination room or on telemedicine or when I'm giving a talk, which is coming from here, not from here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And that's what counts, right? When you're working with patients, they have to know your sincerity and your authenticity working with them. What else have you found has made you so successful with your patients and having, being able to talk to your patients, even if they say, well, doc, I don't think I'm going to give up my foods that I have enjoyed for so long, even though I'm sick, and you're telling me that this is going to work for me. How is it that you've gotten them to listen to you?
see, first of all, I use a lot of humor in my practice. They tell me a joke, I tell them a joke. They feel at ease. That's the first thing. I've got to be at ease. They've got to be at ease. The younger patients are a problem because they say nothing is wrong with me. Why are you asking me to change? My cholesterol is okay. I don't have high blood pressure. So why should I change? This is the time I tell them that your heart disease or any chronic disease starts at a very young age. Atherosclerosis starts at the age of 8 or 10, but it manifests itself. It does not manifest at that age, but it manifests itself at the age of 40 and 45.
Mhm.
So that is the important thing. I said, go ahead. You want to play Russian roulette? Play and take your chance. So that's my first thing, that you are not going to feel this, but you will thank me 35, 40. It's very difficult to sell that. But that is how and then number two is I tell them, give it a try. I am not like all or none. Okay, give up everything. I will say, do me one favor. Give up dairy for a week or for a month and see what you do. When they come back and tell me, wow, doc, no distension, no flatulence, no burping, that's when they change. If I did not feel good after changing and I was miserable, I would have gone back. You have not seen me in a hospital when I've got perforations twice in my large intestine and my colon. And that
Mm.
surgeon actually, I swear to you, that surgeon actually looks real in my face and said, look, Akil, if I don't take you for surgery right now, you may not survive.
Mm.
And I was having that, before that, before he came, 103 fever. They were putting IV antibiotics in me. For the next whole year, I had mouth ulcers and all that. Where is all that? I have not got my colon removed. My gut bacteria must be saying, thank God, Akil, you're doing the right thing. They'll love it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I have problems? Of course, I have problems. Age related problems, not doing the right thing when I was young. It has come to me. But that's my second part of it. I teach people, my patients, how to live when you can't change things.
Well, I have a question to do with, the pushback you might get from patients, because you were 61. Am I correct? When you finally made some changes? Was that
Yes.
the age? Okay. So you were 61, you have a 30-year-old in your exam room, and they're saying, well, doc, it took you till you were 61. Why should I change now? What do you tell somebody like that? And what is the most substantial change that somebody can make that would impact their health?
You see, you're right. They often ask me that you change at the age of 61. When I get to 61, I'll change. But the
Mhm.
fact is that do you want to go through what I've gone through?
Okay.
Do you want to actually rip your chest open by somebody? And then for the next 3 days, you don't even know. You're scared to take a single breath because each breath is like tormenting pain. So all these things are a factor. You don't have to go through what I've gone through.
Mhm.
Learn from my mistakes, not from my accomplishments. Learn from my accomplishments too, but learn more from the mistakes I made. There is no reason. I know with the AI and all the genetic therapies, people are going to live 120 in the next 20, 30 years. That'll be an easy thing. But I am asking people before your genetic therapy and all actually comes into play, even if that comes into play, you can easily go to your hundreds if there is your chronic diseases are the problem.
Mhm.
Easily.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would I be able to? I'll try my level best, but I've done a lot of damage and I'm getting better at it. But certain things you can't help it. I don't want them to make the same mistake.
Right.
I don't want them to be in a depression when you're almost thinking of ending your life.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't
Mm-hmm.
want people to go through that. That's the only reason that I keep hopping on the same thing. Change your lifestyle, change your lifestyle. The six pillars. And I was amazed. I was just reading the other day, which was that Hayek Hospital in Beirut, Lebanon, was the first hospital. Now, this meat eating country. I've been to Beirut. They had in the hospital, the first hospital, the only vegan meals.
Only vegan
Only
meal.
vegan meals.
Wow.
Wow.
So that was a hospital to serve vegan meals. Hayek Hospital in Beirut, Lebanon. And
That's incredible.
so, people can change.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yes, my patients will come back and you see, mine is not a roadmap for everybody to follow. No, I'm not saying that. My roadmap means that okay, you do this and then you climb mountains and no. you have to do what the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine are telling you to do.
So
That is,
talk to us about what the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine are, and which one would you consider to be the most important one? If you looked at them in a circle, which one would be at the top?
see, I always compare the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine to the symphony orchestra, where your conductor is your nutrition. And then all these various other things that you have, sleep, exercise, how to handle stress, avoid substance abuse, and a good support system are your cello players, your trumpet players, your pianists. And all this music has to work in sync to get a harmonious, beautiful sound to your ears. So, in the same thing, all these sleep and exercise and stress relief, they all have to work in tandem to get the best output for your health outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you, a lot of people say, I exercise, I eat right, and I'm feeling great. Yes, you are. You're eating right, but you're not full circle yet. So to get the full benefit of your own body, you have to follow the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. Now, if you cannot follow 2, follow 3. I'm not asking you. Sooner or later, you will come to it. But the most important one, as you asked me, Lynn, is your nutrition. No doubt about it. Now, there is a big distinct race between the two, exercise and sleep. I always thought exercise was number 2, but sleep has come like a thunderstorm in the last few years. And why I'm very connected to sleep, because I have a problem. I still have a problem. I always thought that, like I said, when sometimes you're so used to it, you think it's life. I slept 5 hours and I thought I was doing good. But now, following my own talks on sleep, then I realized that I've managed to get 6 hours and how much better I'm feeling. Still, it's not the same. You have to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, restorative sleep. I mean, I was telling in one of my talks, because heart is my main subject, heart disease, that during the daylight savings time, when you lose an hour and you gain an hour. So when you lose an hour, they found that, and this is an experiment done with all the millions of people. You and I are also in the experiment. But they found that the day you lose an hour, the next day, there are 23% more heart attacks. And the day you save, the daylight savings, that 26% less heart attacks the next day.
That's incredible. That's
I
incredible.
mean, it's mind-blowing.
I want to take a step back, Dr. Akil. What are the exact 6 pillars? So number 1, number 2, number 3, let's go through those, because I want to dig a little bit deeper into, like, the sleep, for example. What if, like me, I tend to wake up in the middle of the night, I'm wide awake, and I think, okay, I'll be productive and I'll go do something in my office or whatever it may be. And I know that's probably not the best choice, but how does somebody fix that, if you will? But let's start with what are the 6 pillars?
The first one is nutrition.
Okay.
Exercise, sleep, handling stress, how to handle stress.
Okay.
A good support system, social support system, where you give support more than you take in support. That helps you more. And finally, avoiding substance abuse. Now, sleep becomes extremely important. The only time you use the bed is to go to sleep or have sex. Period.
Does it have to be in that order? No.
No.
I couldn't resist.
Okay, I'll put in a little bit. Have a pillow fight. How about that? But it's true. That's the only time. And in your bedroom, I know we all have this. I have a TV in my bedroom. I've stopped using it, but I have a TV in my bedroom. I have my next is my phone, which I've now started leaving it outside in the drawing room. So the whole idea is number two, only go to bed when you are sleepy. Otherwise, go and read a book or meditate or anything you want. Only. And the analogy is that when you go to on a dining table, when you're about to eat, you don't wait to get hungry. You eat. So when you go to bed, you don't have to wait to get to sleep.
Mm.
You sleep. So in 20 minutes, if you don't fall asleep, get up and leave. Number two, your room temperature should be 65 degrees because
Old.
the body core temperature should fall 2 to 3 degrees. That is why what you do is have a very hot bath, steaming bath at the bedtime. And then you go into it when your body temperature will fall, when the cool room is there. And that brings the sleep.
Hmm.
Have an alarm clock, but not to wake up, to tell you when to sleep. And face the alarm clock, the face away from you. Because people like me, insomnics, will always look at the, oh my God,
Right.
12 o'clock, oh, 2 o'clock, you still not got sleep. So don't let it bother you that way. And that's the thing. And no, none of these other things should be around. And when you get up, some people like to laze around when they get up. See, for a short distance, if you answer to this question that you can get up in the morning and you can, at 11 o'clock, you are starting to fall asleep again, that means you're not at good sleep, 11 to 12. And if you need an extra cup of coffee after your first cup of coffee, that means you're not at good sleep. And sleep is fascinating. And the hard thing, and another thing that sleep does is, so far we've always been told that sleep is necessary. What you learn to memorize this, sleep is necessary. Now in the last 4 or 5 years, I've found out to learn something, you need to sleep before. And Kathleen, you will not believe it. Now I realize when I was a medical student, we used to have all-nighters, like everybody else did. We crammed and crammed and crammed. So one student I remember his name. I remember it was just 97 pounds, but he would just go to sleep for 9 hours, get up, read for 3-4 hours, go back to sleep, and he would do better than all of us.
Interesting.
So sleep has got some phenomenal things. And one more thing about sleep, if I may, some of us are night owls, some of us are morning larks. Society has given a bad name to night owls. Like my wife, she's a night owl. I'm a morning lark. But what does society say? Early to bed, early to rise makes you healthy, wealthy, and wise. Get up in the morning. So society has sort of blamed the night owls. Now we are burning the candles at both ends. Think about it. When everybody rises in the morning at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock to go to work, they are not ready. But they have to. So they join the whole thing and go. And they try their best to put the best foot forward. And by the time 5 o'clock, when the morning larks and everybody wants to come home, they are at the best. And now they have to go home. So I think, look kindly, be empathic to people who are night owls.
You're listening to the Veganpreneur Revolution Show. It's like it's entrepreneurs, it's vegan, it's revolution, it's the Veganpreneur Revolution Show. And I'm Kathleen Gage. I am your co-host with VLynn Hawkins, a co-host. And VLynn, would you please tell us a little bit about our guest today? And Dr. Akil, please let us know where people can find you. And I want to remind people also subscribe to this channel wherever you're watching this episode or listening to it. Do us a favor and subscribe, because that allows the algorithms to pick it up and share it with more people.
I'm so excited that our guest today is Dr. Akil Taher. He is a practicing physician and a heart disease survivor, a septuagenarian athlete, and just an all-around great guy with a message about heart health and living a life that is basically along the principles of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. And I have to say that seeing how he has come through these last 10, 12, 13 years after having really succumbed to heart disease and gone through bypass surgery, climbing mountains, and just skydiving, doing a triathlon, and just all the things that he's done have been so inspiring to so many people. And we are honored to have him as our guest today. Talking about the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, talking about his practice, talking about patients. And I have a question for you as we continue the next segment of this interview. You mentioned something a little earlier about the effects of lifestyle, the lifestyle that you were living. And a lot of people don't realize the effects of what it is that they're doing, what they're eating, if they're not exercising, if they're, and we talk about exercising, and I think that's important too, because people think, does that mean I have to be in the gym? Does that mean I have to run a marathon? Does that mean, exercising to some people is a thing that is so daunting that they don't even want to do. We were talking about sleep. Let's talk exercise. How do you help patients to understand what exercise is for them and the value of it as they're moving through this journey of regaining their health?
Very interesting. I believe that exercise should be on a prescription pad written by all the physicians. No matter what stage in life you are, no matter what health conditions you have, you can start your exercise in bed when you get up. Your calf muscle stretches, your, ankle rotations, your straight leg raising, all this you can do, because what happens is that you have exercise. Yes, they say that you have to do 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise 5 days in a week under uh, conditions which are favorable to you. I say this because a lot of time my patients go out, husband and wife or a spouse and this thing, go and I tell them to go and walk, and they walk the 3 miles and they come and they say, this is the worst advice you've given to us. And so why? And so all we did was fight. So, and we fought when we went and we fought when we came back. So the whole idea was that you have to have it in environment which is pleasing to you when you exercise. Now, when you have exercise, especially for older people, your endurance exercises, your muscle strengthening exercises, your balance exercises, and your stretching exercises. So what I'm saying is a lot of people do an hour or 30 minutes in the morning. They go on the elliptical, they go on the treadmill, or they go out and run, whatever it is. Then they come back on a desk job and do not move till 6 o'clock. And then 6 o'clock, they start eating and going on the couch and watching TV. That is worse than just having motility throughout the day. They even had a research done on this, that even if you've got a desk job and every half an hour you get up and go and come back, walk around and come back, your hemoglobin A1C falls by 2 to 3 points if you're a diabetic. So idea is to move. You see, if you look at the blue zones, I believe, in blue zones, what did people do? They don't have this thing about treadmills and running and marathons and all that. All they do is move. So if you're on a constant moving thing and then rest when you really have to rest, think about it. If you are in motion throughout the day, every time I've done certain activity and really all throughout the day, I'm doing this, doing that, I sleep well. But if I don't, then I have a problem. So the whole idea is that you have to incorporate this. When we say that endurance exercises are for the heart, where you dance, you can go for a dance, or you can bike, or you can swim, or you can run, or you can walk fast. Balance exercises are very important for older people. Just to stand on one leg for a while is a chore for older people. Tying your shoelaces is a chore for older people. Walk heel toe and walk around that way. Walk on your front foot and do that. These are the balance exercises. Stretching exercises, there is no better stretching exercises than yoga. Sun salutation. You get all your muscles stretched out because women are more flexible than men as they age. Now, you say this is a research, this is a double-blinded study. No. This is my observation in my patients. And my wife is more flexible than I am. Men tend to get stiff. So that is another thing. And then, of course, you have your, everybody, when they get older, your muscles, of course, the size goes down. But it's not that you start taking protein powders. No. All you have to do is do muscle strengthening exercises, because this is partly because of not moving too much as you get older and partly hormonal. Your testosterone levels go a little down. But do muscle strengthening and you will be fine. You don't have to look like Schwarzenegger at my age. But all I need to do is strengthen my muscles. So that's another thing. So there are two types of exercises. Now, if somebody comes around with a heart disease, somebody comes around with some chronic disease, diabetes, and wants to improve the diabetes much more than just movement exercises are concerned, then they have to say, I had a heart problem. Now I want to safeguard my heart, my coronaries, I want them to dilate, and I want more blood to push on. Now you have to think about exercises that makes a difference because you've got a problem. Now you have to go into 70% of your maximum heart rate. And your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. So I'm 75. If I do 220 minus my age, it will be about 140, 150. And if you take 70% of that, it'll be about 105, 106. So if I don't reach 105, 106 intensity, now they've come with newer this thing that you can do this for 2 minutes, then get back to walking. Then you can do 1 minute intensity and get your heart rate up. It's phenomenal changes you'll find.
I love that.
Your endothelium becomes better. And
well, let's talk about that. The endothelium cells. Let's talk about the heart as an organ and what happens. I remember watching the movie. Darn, what was the movie with the athletes? Game Changers.
Game Changers.
And they did a test where they did the blood test before a meal and after a meal. And they had these 3 guys and they, each had something different. And the plant-based guy had one thing, and I'm just going to talk about the burger guy. So talk to us about the difference that red meat digesting in the system turns the blood, what happens in the blood, and what a plant-based meal does and what happens in the blood as that food is digested, and what that actually does to the heart muscle.
Well, VLynn, if I might add in for Dr. Akil, with that study they did with the 3 young men, they actually wanted to see if it affected their ability to have an erection, and a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but there was scientific proof that what they ate determined not only the frequency, but actually the ability, if you will. So Dr. Akil, address that on why what men and women eat really does impact not just their weight, but it also impacts their sexual performance. It impacts their depression or lack thereof, all of that.
And then the heart muscle.
And the heart muscle, absolutely.
Correct. You see, one important thing is that I always tell my patients, once they go on to a whole food plant-based diet, they come back and they don't tell me about how good they feel, that no pain in the chest. They turn around and say, boy, oh boy, I'm great in bed now. and they tell me that. Listen,
now, did you ask your wife?
Because think about it. Your penile arteries are smaller than your coronary arteries. So they get affected first.
Interesting.
And there is an absolute thing about heart disease. And if somebody comes around with erectile dysfunction, he's 45, 50 years old, I'll tell him to get a stress test after ruling out other things. Now,
right.
What happens is, if you take a diet which is full of meat, the standard American diet, meat, eggs, dairy, processed foods, high in salt, high in sugar. Average American has 17 teaspoonful of sugar a day and has 3.5 grams of salt a day, when all you need is less than a gram. And you don't need any sugar. Even that is too much. But what I'm saying is 3.5 grams. Now, there are absolute studies done. People turn around and tell me in my own family, but it's okay if I eat salmon. I only eat fish. Yeah, but fish has cholesterol. So every piece of meat or egg or whatever you have, fowl or bacon or whatever, it has saturated fat and cholesterol. And it also, there is a substance called choline in meats. And the gut bacteria act on this choline and converts it into, I'm not going to go into the depth of all the names, but the TMA to the TMAO. And the TMAO is an independent factor of causing atherosclerosis in your coronary arteries. Not related to smoking, not related to that, other smoking or no exercise, but this is an independent risk factor. And for chronic diseases, think about it. When you heat something at a very high temperature, they produce amines. And these amines they're carcinogenic. It is proven. These are proven things. You can't get away with this. Now, every artery, see, when you talk about the heart, what is your heart? Your heart, why are we so bent on it? Your heart is the size of your fist, right? It pumps 20,000 gallons of blood every day into all the organs of your body. Now, through 50,000 miles of arteries that run in your body. So when it's doing all this phenomenal work and giving all the oxygenated blood to your liver, to your kidneys, to your legs, it needs looking after. And that's why you have the arteries, the coronaries, because why are they called coronaries? it's a coronation of the heart. And these are the coronaries. Now, the coronaries where I'm going to talk my women's heart disease, these for the longest period of time, that these coronary arteries, especially the LAD that we talk about, is a widow maker. For the longest period of time, people thought it was a widow maker because we did not understand and do any research on women's heart disease till mid 1980s. Now we know that women die at the same rate as men. 315,000 deaths of for heart disease in women. That is 1 in every 5 deaths. And over 16% of women over the age of 20 already have coronary artery disease.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? And so we have to look after this heart. And that is why our coronaries. Then what does the coronary, the endothelium of the coronary, it produces a very important substance, nitric oxide. And this nitric oxide keeps your coronaries in your heart, plus all the other blood vessels. It keeps your coronaries dilated. It keeps the blood flowing smoothly in the lumen, and it protects your arterial wall so that it keeps elastic and so that it does not get hardened to get high blood pressure, to harden the arteries to get high blood pressure. Simple thing like a whole food plant-based diet, half your plate of fruits and vegetables, 1/4 of your plate of beans and legumes, and 1/4 of your plate whole grains with nuts thrown in. You do this, your endothelium regenerates. That's why you see if you're a whole food plant-based SOS diet, that is the reason, because your endothelium now regenerates and becomes normal again. So
Dr. Akil, I have a question about the diet, because a lot of people think they're too old to change. And, you were 61 when you made massive changes. And how old are you now?
75.
75. Okay. And since the time you had open heart surgery, you've run marathons, you've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Did I pronounce that right? You have skydived. You've done things that most people couldn't even imagine doing. And you did it after you changed your diet. You went from the SAD diet, the standard American diet, to a whole food plant-based SOS diet, which means no salt, oil, or sugar, added processed salt, oil, or sugar. And in that, there's people saying, well, that's you. And, I'm a living testament to it. I was 64 when I made the change, and I'm going to be 70 in a few months, and dramatic changes in my life. VLynn made changes, and she's going to be 70. And it's like, okay, we're kind of old, all of us, and we're living the life. Okay. Now, for people who are, they're living a very unhealthy life right now is a really dangerous time for a lot of people to have heart attacks because of snow. They go out and shovel snow. We just had an ice storm, and we had to literally move logs off the property. And people were like, oh, can you do it at your age? It's like, can I do it? I can do it, and I can run circles around you. Yes, I can do it. So for those people who are using their age as an excuse not to make a change, how quickly would they see a change if they went from the SAD diet to a whole food plant-based diet? How quickly would they actually notice how they're feeling, their energy, their vitality? What's your experience on that?
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
I'm telling you, within 2 weeks, if you follow it strictly. If you don't follow it strictly and you're doing it step by step, it may take you 6 months or so. So that's my thing. But if you go cold turkey, sure, you're going to get the benefits. But a lot of people don't like to do that. And again, I always give this example. I've done on a carnivore diet, I've done my bike ride, 100 kilometers, and I've done it on plant-based. And when I did on a plant-based, my preparation time for the bike ride, my performance time, and my all this were decreased.
Recovery time.
When I did it on a carnivore diet, now that I was on a plant-based diet.
What about weight loss? How quickly might someone see some and I'll call 10 pounds dramatic.
You see, this is what I'm saying. The GP1 drugs that are coming out in the market, and everybody's joining the bandwagon to get that drug just to reduce weight. Yes, it is reducing weight, but it has side effects.
Right.
It is extremely expensive, and you don't know what the long-term side effects are going to be. You have something which is 10 times better. You don't have to watch what you are eating. It is nutrient dense, not caloric dense. And you can eat as much as you want, and you start losing weight within 1 month. You see, oh my God, I've lost a few inches on my belly. And then you feel great, but you have to keep up to it. And which diet tells you that you can eat as much as you want? As you want.
There's
I
only one that I know of. It's called a whole food, plant-based, no SOS.
Well, you know, I have to tell you, I was watching Good Morning America a couple of days ago, and they were talking about the obesity epidemic, that we are in an epidemic
Yes.
of obesity. They said there's 3 ways to handle this. One is medication. And I'm like, okay, there we go. The next one is surgery. And the next one is lean protein diet. And they showed a plate with salmon on it, and it had, I think, some cheese on it. And I'm like, are you flipping kidding me? And it's like, this is the propaganda that people are fed. And instead of talking about prevention, which is exactly what we're talking about right now, they're talking about, okay, you're not going to change your behavior, so let's do some dramatic things like cut into you. Let's give you some of that Ozempa or whatever they call it. And the commercial that drives me nuts is that woman dancing in the town.
Yes.
I actually went on YouTube to look at that video, and I was looking at the comments. I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Yes.
People are saying,
She's
"So
got,
why
a
are
great,
you doing
she's got
that?"
a great voice, and she has done a wonderful in that this thing. But come on, all the people over there are totally obese, you know.
Absolutely.
And there is no this thing. And the thing is that I had it in my own nephew. He went on. Somebody told him in Florida to go on this diet of lean meat and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up having to get a stress test done and found blockages. So you can do that. You will lose weight,
Right.
but there are side effects which are absolutely deadly. So I don't think anybody should go on a meat-based diet, period. But
so, Dr. Akil, what is the name of your book, and where can people find it?
it is Open Heart. I was just telling Lynn that we now with the AI, I can get it translated to a lot of languages without having to have an interpreter do it.
Nice. Open Heart. Wonderful.
I
And
think
it's a great book. I read it.
Right.
I read it right after it came out. Great book.
But I want doctors to write. I want doctors to have, they all have stories. I want other people to write. I want people to take help if they want, but get onto the thing of putting your thoughts on paper.
Right.
We want doctors to write too.
Absolutely.
As you know, we are the Veganpreneur Revolution. And that's what it's all about, helping doctors and other health and wellness professionals to really have their voices amplified and let the world know that what we have been fed in propaganda is killing us. Dr. Furman wrote the book, what is it? Fast Food Genocide.
Yes, he wrote that also.
And, you know, it's so true that they have the food, milk, dairy industry have all come together to devise a means of increasing their economic opportunity while they are in fact decreasing our lifespan.
Right.
And it's going to cost them in the long run if we keep killing ourselves.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like they're making all of the money that they can make during this period of time where we're still under the haze of believing that medicine is the first and only option. And that's not the case.
Not
and
at all.
I'm so grateful that there are people like you who are really adamant about getting your voice out there. And our goal is to help even more to do that. That's one of the reasons why we're producing this show. the National Health Association, longest running nonprofit focused on educating people about living a whole food, plant-based, SOS-free lifestyle that includes water fasting. So
Absolutely.
I know that water fasting is not something that you are all that familiar with, but after talking with doctors like Dr. Frank Sabatino and others, what's your take on water fasting?
Absolutely. It does wonders. This is the time, like what they say, when you're in a deep sleep and you're fasting, your overall body starts slowing down, your blood pressure goes down, your heart, your organs start regenerating. And this gives a chance. When you're fasting, it gives a chance to relax. You see, when I was in the Middle East, there was the month of Ramadan where people
Mhm.
fasted, and that was without water. They had to fast sunrise to sunset. And a lot of people got benefits even with then without having water. So fasting gives your body that kind of rest, and your gut bacteria also need that rest. So it does phenomenal. Intermittent fasting is what I think I'm doing it, because my last meal is at 5:30, and then I get up in the morning, and then when I have my first shake is at about 9 o'clock. So 5:30 to 5:30 is 10 hours, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30. It comes to
Yeah.
intermittent fasting.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Uh, before uh, I may forget, but I want to thank the PCRM also.
Mm,
Mm.
mhm,
Have
mhm.
done is that they have eliminated the use of live animals for surgical training, which I had during my acute trauma life support that I did years back. I'd gone over to New Orleans and I had to butcher a dog to do
Oh
it
my God.
because we were
Mm,
there. That was the way things were done. Now
mm.
they don't do it. And we've got ample of opportunities for people now to, because this is a field which will grow leaps and bounds. The plant-based food will go leaps and bounds. And we as medical personnel, nurses, nurse practitioners, doctors, whoever, we have got to get on the bandwagon and start doing things. We've got ample of opportunities of research, talks, podcasts going there, and we've got to do this. We need a little help because we are not, especially people of my age or even in the 60s, they're not really savvy with all the things. And that is why we require people like you to help us out.
So
Well,
let's segue into that conversation about people gaining visibility, people in the medical profession, and the books that would be good for people to get. Definitely recommend Open Heart by Dr. Akil, and we'll have the link in the show notes because we really want you to educate yourself. And I think it's that education and that awareness. I recently read a book called Ultra Processed People, and it's about how much ultra processed foods we eat, and that's different than processed foods. And we had our ice storm recently, and we were without power for 8 or 9 days. And one day I decided I had to go to the grocery store, and I made my way out to the grocery store, and I was shocked at how many people were in line at McDonald's. I mean, the trail of cars went around the block, and I was like, really? Really? So I go to the grocery store, and what I noticed was the vegetable and fruit department was rather empty. There were a few people there. Everywhere there was ultra processed foods like potato chips, cookies, canned foods. That some canned foods are okay, but there are the kinds that have the chemicals. And so, with what you're doing, Dr. Akil, and with what other doctors who are aware, there's many doctors now that are joining the whole movement for plant-based eating, whole food plant-based eating, non-processed, not the fake meats and all that. We're talking the real whole food. What can doctors do? What have you done to raise awareness? You talked about getting on podcast shows. You have your book. What are you doing to market your book? You're doing talks. I think you either have done TED Talks or you're going to be doing TED Talks. So what can you advise other experts who are in the medical profession, who are truly experts and they have something to say? What can they do to get their message out there?
Writing, consulting, podcast shows, Zoom sessions, actually going over to rounds in the library in your local community. I've already done 4 libraries in Atlanta, and I've done one in Ohio. So, Rotary clubs, Lion Club, these are all the places that you can do. Schools, go to medical schools. Why they only have 24, 5 hours of nutrition in your 4 year course?
Mm-hmm.
That is not being done by. Now it has improved. It has improved, but it's 25 hours. I had 0 hours. My son, who's a doctor,
Amazing.
had 10 hours.
Mm-mm.
And now it is 25 hours, but not enough. But we are
Right.
making headway.
Mm-hmm.
There.
Okay, I have a leading question for you. This is very leading, and I know the answer I want to hear, but I want to hear your answer. Let's say that you have a presentation set, and your anticipation is you're going to have 100 people who show up to your presentation, and 5 people show up. Do you cancel the presentation, or do you do the presentation? And if so, at what level? Now, that's a very leading question. I think you know what I want to hear, but what is your answer?
But I tell you, I know it's a leading question, but Lynn will bear me out. I have talked to 4 people, the smallest number, and I've talked to 350 at the NHA and
Mhm.
100 at the other place. But my way of talking to 4 people is exactly what I do when there are 350, or my way of talking to 350 people would be exactly the way I do it to 4 people.
Perfect.
I do not care. I'm going to give a talk to the Rotary Club in Anniston, and she asked me that we are expecting so many, but if we don't get, I said, don't worry. If nobody is there, you will be there. She said, yes. I said, I'll talk to you.
I love it. And I appreciate that, because I have talked to some people who say, well, only 20 people signed up. It's like 20 people signed up because they want to hear the information. And it's that domino effect. So, I'm kind of on my soapbox right now, but we all need to do what we need to do to get our message out. And that's why we wanted to have you on the podcast show.
Absolutely.
And what would you say moving forward? What do you see happening with the plant-based movement? What's your vision for your involvement and for what other people can do to really make a difference?
It'll take time, but we don't have to give up. It will change. It'll change slow. It'll start in your immediate network of family and friends, spreading peripheral to your community, to your city, to your country, to other countries. It will happen. Like I was going on a trip to Spain in May, March, April. Yeah, in May, I was going for a trip to this thing. I was going to stop at my friend's place in London, my wife and I, and they heard my talk. And they said, would you be able to give a talk over here in London? I said, sure. So I'm going to make the tent over there. And then whenever I end my talk, I try to, if I remember, that just don't sit with the thoughts I've given you. Spread these thoughts to other people. If one of you listen and tell 5 other people,
Right.
that makes a world of a difference. They don't necessarily have to come, but you know enough to make them start thinking that there is something in it. I mean, imagine I have gone to with my family to meals. I've gone to a wedding in Chicago when I got that bout of diverticulitis,
Mhm.
and I had to leave the wedding. And in Indian ceremonies, sometimes they consider a bad omen if a person sick comes around. It's stupidity. So the whole idea is that I've gone through, I can use the word hell, right? Hell.
Mhm.
But I am not going to go through it again. I am not interested in longevity right now at this age. I'm interested in my quality of life.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that.
So if by chance, promise me one thing, even if you don't drink, when I die and you all are alive, have a drink on me.
I'll have a mocktail. I haven't had a drink in 40 years. So
I know.
I love you dearly,
I know.
doctor, but I am not
I
going to
just,
start
I
drinking
just,
because of you.
Mocktail is good enough.
Mocktail
A
is-
mocktail is good enough.
You know,
You know,
I do-
Dr.
Oh, go
Akil,
ahead, VLynn.
we're in an era in the midst of a growing trend. And I want to bring this last piece in before we wrap things up about the money that's involved in all of this. And, you know, we talked about the spiraling or the, what do you call it? The door that you go, the revolving door with medicine and being on the hamster wheel. Once you get into the medical system, it can be tough to get out of it. And to know that the plant-based trend is now grown into an over $4 trillion movement. We're bumping up against a almost $200 trillion industry. And, you know, that's a huge gap. And you spoke to the fact that, you know, the changes that we're looking for are going to take time. What are, and this might be a leading question too, because I'm just going to say it. We all know that you can write a check for speed, right? You can always put money towards something to make it move faster. What are some ways that people can add to the economics of the whole food plant-based movement to help it move more quickly? Got any ideas?
I think that, if you look very carefully, number one is people don't have enough money for grocery and all this in this country, especially the middle and lower middle income people. And if we can get to them that you can buy your grains or your legumes in bulk quantities, keep it around there, make your soups with that and freeze it, all this is going to be less expensive, not more expensive. If you're going to go to a place where they give you mock meat and mock this thing and they tell you it is a vegan restaurant, of course you're going to pay more. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about simple dishes. I mean, how long does it take? This is the truth. I'm not a real good cook, but I'll tell you this. I made a carrot soup by just taking one onion and cutting it into pieces, cut the carrots into pieces, put the vegetable broth, and then boiled it, and then put it into a grinder or a mixed all that. But before that, I put 6 inch of ginger grated, and I put lime in it, and I took it to my daughter's place. Which restaurant did you get that? Must be a gourmet restaurant. I said, no, honey, I just did this. She says, you're lying. It's just simple foods that get the best taste. So, and it's cheap. It's not expensive. My food bills are a lot less than they were. And thank God that my wife is also following my diet too. So we are saving, but the whole idea is that the middle class and all that, not only will their health become better, but their bank balance will increase. So there is a win-win situation. There is no losing over here. Only thing is we have got to get them to understand that when I had 61, there were not enough of recipes. Now they're finger licking. So why not? Go ahead and get those simple recipes and do it. I mean, mushroom barley soup the other day I made. Wow. So
Wow.
it's simple.
I want that recipe. And you brought something up that's really important. It's about eating the whole food way rather than all the processed meats that are not, they're vegan meats, but there's a real distinction between whole food and then the processed vegan foods. Those are two different conversations. And you mentioned something about your wife is on board with this way of eating too. Did she change immediately or did it take time? And the question that I have following that is, what if somebody is in an environment where they're the only plant-based eater and they really are sticking with it, but they're in a sense being mocked for it? People are teasing them. They're like, oh, you just need some good bacon. And it's like it's crazy making. What can you say, and what would you say to a patient who comes to you and says, doctor, I'm eating healthy, I'm losing weight, I'm feeling better, my numbers are great, but my spouse won't do it, my kids won't do it? How do you encourage them to stay with it and possibly to encourage their family?
See, the most important thing is, if I see something good happening in my spouse, I want to do it. Anything. You're not talking about food. Anything that a spouse does, and you may not be the same, but you say, hey, he's getting benefit. She's getting benefit. Let me do it. So my wife turned into a vegetarian 40 years back because of animal cruelty. I always tell this to people. People do it for environmental reasons, people do it for animal rights, and people do it for health. But the moment you do this, and I want people to understand, do it for any damn reason. I did it for health, but I opened up my whole self into understanding environment and animal rights. See, my wife and my daughter were animal lovers. I was not that kind of a lover as they were. I would not harm any animals, but to me it was, okay, they're animals. Now I started loving animals. Because the more I do for my health and I see, oh my God, this is happening, let me see what is going on. I go to Sailesh Rao and I see about all those animal things. And then I say, oh boy.
Climate.
So my point is that you will find a lot of people who will come around. And I have seen so many of my patients and my viewers and my listeners, they'll call me afterwards and say, even podcasters, that look, I am doing everything, but my husband is not doing it. So, or vice versa. But the whole idea is to give them time to change one thing at a time and see if it is helping them. It has to help them. And once it starts helping them, they get less distended, they have more energy, they breathe better, they don't have any chest discomfort anymore. That's the bottom line. If I was doing plant-based and I was in the same misery as before, I would never continue doing it.
Right.
Because I did it for health. My wife would do it because she's done for animals.
Right.
But now I would do it because now all the threes are in me: animal, environment, and health.
I love it.
Previously, I didn't care. I did it for health.
So, and that's where so many people come from. I don't have any health issues. I'm a vegan for the animals, and I know that I don't want to eat animals, but I'll eat anything else that I can. The processed and ultra processed, until they realize that even the processed and ultra processed is not the best option. And then they kind of get on the bandwagon with the plant-based eating. And, like you, I ended up starting out because of health, but it wasn't long before I realized that the things that I had been seeing that I discounted because I was thinking it didn't matter, it didn't touch me. But I would drive down the highway and there would be a stretch of highway where you'd have to hold your nose. The stench was so bad. Why wasn't that enough to wake me up to say something's wrong here? To see the truck of chickens loaded with chickens that, they're so tight in there, they're squished on the outside of the truck where you can see the feathers hanging out. Why wasn't that enough to say something is wrong? What is it in people that, we think that these things are happening? I mean, even today, where the weather patterns are so out of sync with where we should be. I mean, I moved from the north to the south to get away from these teens, temperatures. And now I'm living in a place where, it could potentially snow. It has snowed. We've gotten weeks of below 15 degrees. And, why aren't people connecting the dots that something is wrong and there could be a solution, which it's out there. The word is out there. Eat more plants. It's what's your take on why people aren't seeing this?
The big pharma, the big companies, the dairy industry, and all that, they market the things so very well. And remember one thing about foods: your bacteria, your gut bacteria, depends what gut bacteria you have. You have meat-eating gut bacteria, and the more of bacon and eggs and things you have, you will have more of those kind of gut bacteria. Come on, bring it on. So the idea is that we are so blinded and we are so used to our this thing that we don't see beyond. It's like looking but not really seeing.
Right.
Right.
The whole idea is that I was absolutely dumbfounded when one of my staff some years back, 20 years back, turned around and told me that my son created history today in this small town of Gadsden. I said, well, what happened? He says, he shot a deer at the age of 7.
Oh.
And this was a baby deer that, that, what is that cartoon that the deer,
Bambi.
Bambi.
Mm-hmm.
Bambi. And he said, but imagine saying this is a moment of joy in the family. They're having a party because this 7-year-old could actually shoot. Right? I think, yeah. He shot. So the idea is that how could I at that moment tell her that your son should not have done that? It would be gruesome because she would say, what nonsense are you talking? The whole world is with us. The whole town of Gadsden is with us.
Mm-hmm.
This is very sad, but like you have to wonder, and I'm not against football, I'm not against that, but we are overlooking the fact of what the brain injury is being done.
Mm-hmm.
It's like for me, I mean, I'm not saying that you should not, I think we should take off this recording, but this is just, I don't want, but my point is that during the Roman times, when gladiators fought, it was great pride, pleasure, and they were being eaten by lions.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
50 years from now, somebody will say, how stupid were humans?
Right.
They were crashing and
it's like what you said, it's the big pharma, it's the food manufacturers, animal agriculture, the dairy industry. Just the other day, I was at the grocery store and I was walking by the dairy department and there was a sign that said 3 glasses of milk a day is what you need. And I was like, wow, that's really propaganda. And, I have to remember, and this is true for all of us, we were in our 60s. All 3 of us were in our 60s before we made the change. And I have to remember because once I get it, it's like, well, everybody should know. Not necessarily. It's like it takes what it takes. And that's why, Dr. Akil, it's such an honor to have you on our show because you're helping to raise the awareness. You're doing so much good in the world, and a day at a time, a person at a time, a message at a time, a show at a time, you are making a difference. So with that, I'm going to give it to VLynn for closing thoughts. And then Dr. Akil, we'd love to hear your closing thoughts.
Well, I'm just so excited and honored that you've been able to spend this time with us. We've covered so much, and there's so much food in this conversation for our audience to really get a good meal from. And so with that, what are your parting thoughts? What would you like for our audience to take away with them?
mine are only just a few. I've talked enough, so I will only say this. In your life, laugh loud, love lots, and live large.
Thank you.
That's the only thing. If you can do that, you made it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akil. This has been amazing.
I loved
And
it. I loved it. People,
again, we encourage people to get your book. And again, what is
Absolutely.
your web address?
akiltaher.com.
Okay, and we will put that in the show notes. We'll make sure everybody goes to check out your website, get your book. And this is Kathleen Gage with Veganpreneur Revolution and my co-host,
VLynn Hawkins. And I just want to give one more plug. Dr. Akil does these monthly talks with the Heart Healthy Doc. And you can find the link on the website, Doc's Talks, and sign up so that you will get all of the information about the next upcoming event, which in February, he's doing several. The one that is the doctor's talk is actually on women's heart disease. If you have women in your life, if you're a woman and you want to know how to determine if you're having a heart attack, if you have symptoms of a heart attack, women's symptoms are different than men's. And I think every woman on the planet needs to know this information. I was flabbergasted when I first learned this information from Dr. Akil, and I invite everyone to go to the website, akiltaher.com, find the Doc's Talk across the top, click it, go to the page, sign up, get in there. It's going to be on February the 23rd. And you're going to just be amazed. And I'm going to share a couple little spoilers. He's going to talk about the Yentl syndrome and just the differences that women experience at the onset of heart disease as well as a heart attack. And it's just been such a pleasure for you to be here and talk about the amazing subjects that we've talked about today. And I look forward to everyone in the audience who's watching this. Subscribe and follow us. Check out the show notes. All of this will be in the show notes. Thanks again for joining us. And until next time, we are VLynn Hawkins and Kathleen Gage of the Veganpreneur Revolution with Dr. Akil Taher. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.
bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Veganpreneur Revolution podcast show with VLynn Hawkins and Kathleen Gage. Be sure to leave a review, give a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel. And visit our website at veganvisibilityproductions.com. That's veganvisibilityproductions.com. Have a great day and live healthy.